The deep-seated tensions between Israel and Iran are rooted in decades of political, ideological, and strategic rivalry. Understanding the historical framework helps us decipher the motives and implications of recent actions. From geopolitical strategies to ideological confrontations, the layers of their relationship provide a crucial backdrop to the events of June 22, 2025. The relationship between Israel and Iran has been one of the most complex and volatile dynamics in modern geopolitics, marked by decades of tension, rivalry, and confrontation. To fully grasp the significance of recent events, it is essential to delve into the historical context that has shaped their interactions and fueled their animosity. This history is not merely a backdrop, it is the foundation upon which current conflicts are built, providing critical insights into the motives and implications behind pivotal decisions. The origins of the Israel-Iran rivalry trace back to the mid-20th century, though the relationship was not always adversarial. During the 1950s and 1960s, Iran, under the rule of the Shah, maintained relatively amicable ties with Israel. Both countries saw mutual benefits in cooperating, given their shared concerns over Arab nationalism and the broader instability in the region. Iran's strategic location and its oil wealth made it an invaluable partner for Israel, while Israel's technological advancements and military capabilities were of interest to Iran. This pragmatic alliance, however, was never formalized and remained largely covert due to the political sensitivities in the region. The 1979 Islamic Revolution in Iran marked a dramatic shift in this relationship. The overthrow of the Shah and the rise of a theocratic regime under Ayatollah Khomeini brought about a new ideology that fundamentally opposed Israel's existence. The newly established Islamic Republic of Iran declared its support for the Palestinian cause and labeled Israel as an illegitimate Zionist entity. This ideological shift turned Iran into one of Israel's most vocal and committed adversaries, setting the stage for decades of hostility. In the years that followed, Iran's involvement in regional conflicts and its support for groups hostile to Israel, such as Hezbollah in Lebanon and Hamas in Gaza, further escalated tensions. For Israel, these groups represented an existential threat, as they were equipped and funded by Iran to challenge its security and sovereignty. The repeated clashes and proxy conflicts between these groups and Israel were not isolated incidents, but extensions of the broader Iran-Israel rivalry, with each side vying for strategic advantage in the region. The turn of the millennium introduced new dimensions to the conflict, particularly with Iran's nuclear ambitions coming to the forefront. Israel has consistently viewed Iran's pursuit of nuclear capabilities as an existential threat, fearing that a nuclear-armed Iran would not only shift the balance of power in the Middle East, but also pose a direct danger to its survival. This perception led to numerous efforts by Israel to counter Iran's nuclear program, ranging from diplomatic lobbying and economic sanctions to covert operations and cyber attacks. Iran's regional strategy of expanding its influence, often referred to as the Shia Crescent, has also been a source of contention. By establishing strongholds in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen, Iran has created a network of allies and proxies that challenge Israel's security and strategic interests. For Israel, this encirclement represents a growing threat, with its northern and southern borders increasingly under pressure from Iranian-backed forces. These developments have heightened Israel's sense of vulnerability and driven its leaders to adopt a more aggressive stance toward Iran. The historical context is further complicated by the involvement of global powers. The United States, a longtime ally of Israel, has played a significant role in shaping the dynamics between Israel and Iran. American policies, including its withdrawal from the Iran nuclear deal and the imposition of severe sanctions on Iran, have emboldened Israel's position while exacerbating tensions with Tehran. Conversely, Iran's alliances with countries like Russia and China have provided it with economic and military support, adding another layer of complexity to the conflict. Understanding the historical context of Israel-Iran relations reveals that their rivalry is not simply a matter of ideological differences or territorial disputes. It is a multifaceted conflict shaped by decades of political maneuvering, strategic calculations, and shifting alliances. Each escalation, including the events of June 22, 2025, must be viewed through this lens to fully comprehend its significance. This history highlights the depth of their animosity and the high stakes involved, making it clear that any actions taken by either side have profound implications for the region and beyond. The past is not merely a record of what has been, but a key to understanding the motivations and consequences of what unfolds today. The Middle East has long been a region of immense geopolitical significance, characterized by its strategic location, abundant natural resources, and complex web of alliances and conflicts. The interplay of regional rivalries and the interests of global powers has made it one of the most volatile areas in the world. Israel's attack on Iran, like many such events in the Middle East, cannot be understood in isolation. It is deeply intertwined with the region's broader geopolitical dynamics, making it essential to explore the stakes involved to grasp the underlying motivations and potential consequences. At the heart of the Middle East's geopolitical importance is its energy wealth. The region is home to some of the world's largest reserves of oil and natural gas, making it a critical player in the global energy market. Control over these resources and the infrastructure that transports them, pipelines, shipping routes, and refineries, has been a driving factor behind many conflicts and power struggles in the region. For Israel, ensuring the security and stability of its immediate environment is not just a matter of national security, but also an economic necessity. Iran, as one of the largest oil producers in the world, holds significant leverage in this context, making it both a competitor and a potential threat. The strategic location of the Middle East further amplifies its geopolitical stakes. The region serves as a crossroads for trade and energy flows between Asia, Europe, and Africa. Key choke points, such as the Strait of Hormuz and the Suez Canal, are vital for the movement of goods and energy supplies. Any disruption in these areas can have far-reaching consequences for the global economy. Iran's geographic position and military capabilities, particularly its influence over the Strait of Hormuz, give it the power to challenge these critical routes. Israel, along with its allies, has a vested interest in countering any actions that could destabilize these channels and threaten global trade. Another layer of complexity is added by the competing visions for regional dominance among Middle Eastern powers. Iran's ambition to expand its influence across the region often conflicts with the interests of Israel and its Sunni Arab neighbors, such as Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. These countries share a common concern over Iran's growing footprint in places like Syria, Lebanon, Iraq, and Yemen, where Tehran supports militias and political groups aligned with its interests. Israel's attack on Iran can be seen as part of a broader effort to curtail Tehran's regional ambitions and restore a balance of power favorable to its allies. The involvement of global superpowers further complicates the geopolitical stakes. The United States, Russia, and China all have significant interests in the Middle East, often supporting opposing sides in regional conflicts. The United States, for instance, has been a staunch ally of Israel, providing military aid, intelligence, and diplomatic support to counter Iran's influence. Russia and China, on the other hand, have strengthened their ties with Iran, offering economic and military assistance to counterbalance Western pressure. These rivalries play out in the Middle East, turning it into a battleground for broader geopolitical competition. Israel's actions against Iran are not just a response to regional dynamics, but also a reflection of its alignment with global strategies, particularly those of the United States. The stakes in the Middle East are not limited to energy and strategic dominance. They also encompass ideological and religious dimensions. Iran's theocratic government represents a Shia Islamist ideology that contrasts sharply with Israel's democratic and secular framework. This ideological divide fuels much of the hostility between the two nations. Furthermore, Iran's support for groups that openly call for Israel's destruction heightens the existential stakes for Israel, making preemptive or retaliatory strikes a matter of survival rather than strategy. Israel's attack on Iran also has implications for regional stability and the potential for escalation. Any military action in the Middle East risks triggering a broader conflict involving multiple actors. Iran's allies, such as Hezbollah in Lebanon and various militias in Iraq and Syria, could retaliate against Israel, leading to a wider confrontation. Similarly, other regional powers might feel compelled to take sides, further destabilizing the already fragile region. This potential for escalation underscores the high stakes involved and the need for a nuanced understanding of the situation. In the broader context, the Middle East's geopolitical stakes highlight the interconnectedness of regional and global dynamics. Actions taken by one nation have ripple effects that extend far beyond its borders, influencing international relations, global markets, and the lives of millions. Understanding these stakes is crucial to making sense of the decisions and strategies that drive conflicts in the region. Israel's attack on Iran is not just a localized event, but a reflection of the complex and high-stakes game of geopolitics that defines the Middle East. Iran's role in Middle Eastern politics is a defining factor in the region's complex and often volatile dynamics, and it has significant implications for Israel's security. Iran has positioned itself as a powerful regional actor, leveraging a combination of ideological influence, strategic alliances, and military capabilities to extend its reach. For Israel, this expansion of influence represents a direct and growing threat, one that has shaped its foreign policy and military strategies over the years. To understand the motivations behind actions such as Israel's attack on Iran, it is essential to examine Iran's role in the region and the security challenges it poses to Israel. Central to Iran's regional strategy is its ideological stance, which combines elements of Shia Islamic governance with opposition to Western influence and a strong anti-Israel rhetoric. This ideology has been a cornerstone of the Islamic Republic since its establishment in 1979, framing Israel as an illegitimate state and a symbol of Western imperialism. This stance has driven Iran's support for groups and movements that share its opposition to Israel, including Hezbollah in Lebanon, Hamas, and Islamic Jihad in Gaza. These groups have become key players in Iran's strategy, acting as proxies that enable Tehran to challenge Israel without direct confrontation. The presence of Iranian backed militias and political allies across the Middle East has significantly shifted the region's balance of power. Iran's influence extends to Iraq, where it supports Shia militias, Syria, where it has bolstered the Assad regime, Lebanon, where Hezbollah wields substantial political and military power, and Yemen, where it backs the Houthi rebels. This network of allies allows Iran to project power far beyond its borders, creating a Shia crescent that extends from the Persian Gulf to the Mediterranean. For Israel, this encirclement is a pressing security concern as it increases the likelihood of coordinated attacks and undermines Israel's ability to maintain its strategic advantage. Iran's pursuit of advanced military capabilities further exacerbates Israel's security concern. The development of ballistic missiles capable of reaching Israeli territory, coupled with Tehran's alleged efforts to develop nuclear weapons, represents an existential threat in the eyes of Israeli leaders. The potential for a nuclear-armed Iran is particularly alarming for Israel, as it would shift the regional balance of power and limit Israel's ability to respond to threats. This fear has driven Israel to take a proactive stance, including covert operations, cyber attacks, and airstrikes targeting Iranian facilities and personnel. Israel's security concerns are not limited to direct military threats. Iran's support for groups like Hezbollah and Hamas includes providing weapons, training, and funding, enabling these groups to carry out attacks on Israeli territory. Hezbollah's arsenal, which includes thousands of rockets and missiles, poses a significant threat to Israel's northern border. Similarly, Hamas and Islamic Jihad in Gaza have launched numerous rocket attacks, forcing Israel to invest heavily in defense systems like the Iron Dome. These proxy conflicts are an extension of the broader Iran-Israel rivalry, with each side seeking to undermine the other's security and influence. The economic dimension of Iran's strategy also plays a role in its regional ambitions and its confrontation with Israel. By using its oil revenues and economic ties to build alliances and fund proxies, Iran has managed to sustain its influence despite facing international sanctions and economic challenges. This economic resilience enables Iran to maintain its support for anti-Israel groups and pursue its broader goals in the region. For Israel, countering Iran's economic strategies involves diplomatic efforts to isolate Tehran, lobbying for sanctions, and building alliances with countries that share its concerns about Iranian influence. Iran's activities in Syria highlight the direct and immediate security threats it poses to Israel. Iran's presence in Syria, including the establishment of military bases and the deployment of forces near the Israeli border, has prompted numerous Israeli airstrikes aimed at preventing the transfer of advanced weapons to Hezbollah and disrupting Iranian operations. These strikes are part of Israel's broader effort to prevent Iran from establishing a permanent foothold in Syria, which would further increase the threat to Israeli security. The ideological and strategic rivalry between Iran and Israel is compounded by the lack of direct communication or diplomatic channels between the two nations. This absence of dialogue increases the risk of miscalculation and escalation, as each side interprets the other's actions through a lens of hostility and suspicion. For Israel, this means viewing Iran's regional activities as part of a broader strategy to encircle and weaken it, while Iran sees Israel's actions as an extension of Western efforts to undermine its sovereignty and influence. Ultimately, Iran's role in Middle Eastern politics and its impact on Israel's security cannot be overstated. The rivalry between the two nations is not just a bilateral conflict, but a reflection of broader regional and global dynamics. Iran's ambitions and actions shape the strategic landscape of the Middle East, influencing the policies and responses of Israel and its allies. For Israel, countering Iran's influence is not just a matter of national security, but a defining element of its regional strategy, one that will continue to shape the geopolitics of the Middle East for years to come. Economic and strategic motivations are often at the heart of conflicts, even when ideological or security concerns dominate the surface narrative. The tension between Israel and Iran is no exception. While their rivalry is often framed in terms of ideological differences and security threats, economic factors and strategic calculations are deeply embedded in the decisions that drive their actions. Examining these motivations provides a broader understanding of the dynamics at play, shedding light on the underlying forces that influence the conflict. One of the most significant economic factors in the Israel-Iran conflict is the control and influence over energy resources and routes. The Middle East is home to some of the largest reserves of oil and natural gas in the world, making it a critical region for global energy supply. Iran, as one of the leading oil-producing nations, holds substantial leverage in this arena. Its ability to influence oil prices, control key shipping routes such as the Strait of Hormuz, and maintain alliances with energy-dependent nations gives it a strategic edge. For Israel, ensuring that Iran's control over these resources does not translate into unchecked power is a vital economic and strategic concern. Israel itself is not a significant oil producer and relies heavily on energy imports. This dependency makes regional stability and the uninterrupted flow of resources critical to its economy. Iran's threats to disrupt energy supply routes or leverage its oil wealth to bolster its influence in the region present a direct challenge to Israel's economic security. By countering Iran's regional ambitions, Israel aims to protect its economic interests and maintain stability in energy markets, which are crucial for its growth and development. Beyond energy, Iran's economic ties with other nations in the Middle East and beyond also play a role in its strategy. Despite facing extensive international sanctions, Iran has managed to sustain its economy through trade partnerships with countries like China, Russia, and India. These relationships provide Iran with the resources and support needed to fund its regional activities, including its alliances with groups hostile to Israel. For Israel, curtailing these economic flows is a priority, as they directly impact Iran's ability to project power and sustain its influence. Israel's efforts to isolate Iran economically include diplomatic initiatives aimed at strengthening sanctions, lobbying international organizations, and forging alliances with countries that share its concerns. The Abraham Accords, which normalized relations between Israel and several Arab nations, are a strategic example of Israel's approach. By fostering economic and political ties with countries like the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain, Israel seeks to counterbalance Iran's influence and create a united front against its regional ambitions. These agreements also open up new economic opportunities for Israel, further strengthening its position. Strategically, Israel's geographic location plays a critical role in its calculations. Surrounded by nations and groups with varying degrees of hostility, Israel must constantly assess its vulnerabilities and leverage its strengths. Iran's geographic expanse and its ability to support proxy groups in Lebanon, Gaza, Syria, and beyond pose a unique challenge. These proxies create a multi-front threat that requires Israel to invest heavily in defense and intelligence capabilities. Countering Iran's influence is not only about immediate security, but also about ensuring long-term strategic stability in a region where alliances and hostilities can shift rapidly. Iran's involvement in conflicts and its support for groups like Hezbollah and Hamas are part of a broader strategy to challenge Israel's regional dominance. These actions serve both economic and strategic purposes. By supporting these groups, Iran creates a deterrent against Israeli actions while maintaining pressure on Israel's borders. For Israel, neutralizing this influence involves targeted strikes, intelligence operations, and efforts to disrupt the economic and logistical networks that sustain these groups. Each of these actions has a strategic dimension aimed at weakening Iran's capacity to operate effectively in the region. Israel's technological and economic advancements also play into its strategic approach. As a leader in innovation, particularly in areas like defense technology, cybersecurity, and energy, Israel leverages its capabilities to counteract Iran's influence. For instance, Israel's advancements in missile defense systems like the Iron Dome and its cyber capabilities have proven critical in neutralizing threats from Iranian-backed groups. These technological advantages not only provide immediate security benefits, but also position Israel as a key player in the global defense industry, creating economic and diplomatic leverage. The broader global context further amplifies the economic and strategic stakes in the Israel-Iran conflict. The involvement of major powers like the United States, Russia, and China adds layers of complexity to the situation. The U.S., as a close ally of Israel, provides military aid and diplomatic support, reinforcing Israel's position. Conversely, Russia and China's ties with Iran create a counterbalance, making the conflict a focal point in the larger competition for influence between global powers. Israel's actions against Iran are thus shaped not only by regional dynamics, but also by its alignment with international strategies that seek to limit Iran's power. In essence, the economic and strategic motivations behind the Israel-Iran conflict reveal a deeply interconnected web of interests that transcend ideology and security concerns. These motivations highlight the importance of resources, alliances, and power in shaping the decisions and actions of both nations. Understanding these factors provides a more comprehensive view of the conflict, illustrating that it is as much about economic survival and strategic dominance as it is about ideological and security challenges. The decisions made in this context have far-reaching implications, influencing not only the region, but also the broader geopolitical landscape. The role of media narratives and public perception in shaping conflicts, especially those as complex and fraught as the Israel-Iran rivalry, cannot be overstated. Media, as a powerful tool of communication, influences how events are interpreted, remembered, and acted upon. In the context of Israel's attack on Iran, the way this event has been framed by domestic, regional, and global media outlets significantly impacts public opinion, policy decisions, and international diplomacy. Understanding these narratives is crucial to uncovering the deeper political and strategic motives behind the conflict. Media coverage of such high-stakes events often reflects the agendas and biases of the outlets involved. In Israel, the narrative is typically shaped by a focus on security concerns, emphasizing the existential threats posed by Iran's actions and policies. Israeli media often highlights Iran's nuclear ambitions, its support for groups like Hezbollah and Hamas, and its broader influence in the region as justifications for preemptive or retaliatory actions. This framing aims to garner public support within Israel for government policies while portraying the country as a defender of its sovereignty and security. On the other hand, Iranian media frames such events through the lens of resistance and defiance. Iran's state Controlled outlets often depict Israel's actions as part of a broader Western campaign against Islamic nations and sovereignty. This narrative seeks to rally domestic support by emphasizing Iran's role as a leader of regional resistance against what it portrays as aggression by Israel and its allies, particularly the United States. By framing itself as a victim of foreign hostility, Iran strengthens its internal narrative of resilience and legitimacy. The global media adds another layer of complexity, with coverage varying significantly based on geopolitical alignments and editorial biases. Western media outlets, particularly those in the United States and Europe, often adopt a more nuanced approach, analyzing the conflict through the lenses of international law, human rights, and geopolitical strategy. These narratives frequently include critiques of both Israeli and Iranian policies, highlighting the broader implications of their actions for regional and global stability. In contrast, media in nations aligned with Iran, such as Russia or China, may emphasize Israel's role as an aggressor, framing the attack as a violation of international norms. These narratives often serve the broader geopolitical interests of these nations, which include countering Western influence and supporting Iran as a strategic partner. Such framing affects not only international public opinion, but also the diplomatic discourse surrounding the conflict. The role of social media has become increasingly significant in shaping public perception of events like the Israel-Iran conflict. Platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram serve as arenas for real-time reporting, commentary, and debate, allowing individuals, governments, and organizations to shape narratives in unprecedented ways. Social media amplifies voices that may otherwise be marginalized, enabling grassroots perspectives to challenge official accounts. However, it also facilitates the spread of misinformation, propaganda, and polarizing content, complicating the task of discerning the truth. Media narratives also play a crucial role in influencing domestic and international policy. For instance, if a media outlet successfully frames an event as a legitimate act of self-defense, it can generate domestic support for military actions and reduce international criticism. Conversely, if an event is portrayed as an act of aggression, it can lead to widespread condemnation, protests, and calls for accountability. Policymakers are acutely aware of these dynamics, often tailoring their statements and actions to align with or counter prevailing media narratives. The framing of the conflict also impacts the international community's response. Organizations such as the United Nations, human rights groups, and foreign governments rely heavily on media reports to shape their understanding of events and formulate their positions. Biased or incomplete reporting can lead to misinterpretations, skewing diplomatic efforts and humanitarian interventions. Public perception shaped by media narratives influences not only immediate reactions to events, but also long-term attitudes toward the parties involved. For example, consistent portrayals of Israel as a nation under siege may foster sympathy among its allies, bolstering diplomatic and military support. Similarly, narratives that emphasize Iran's resistance to foreign interference may strengthen its alliances with sympathetic nations and groups. Media narratives also contribute to the historical record of conflicts, shaping how they are remembered and understood by future generations. The language, imagery, and focus of coverage influence collective memory, reinforcing certain interpretations while marginalizing others. This power to shape history underscores the importance of critically examining media narratives and seeking multiple perspectives to understand the full scope of any conflict. Ultimately, the media's role in the Israel-Iran conflict is not merely to report events, but to shape their meaning and implications. The narratives constructed by various media outlets reflect broader political, ideological, and strategic agendas, influencing how the conflict is perceived and addressed. By examining these narratives, we gain insight into the deeper forces at play, highlighting the intersection of communication, power, and perception in the modern world. The broader implications of Israel's attack on Iran extend far beyond the immediate confrontation, affecting global stability, international diplomacy, and the intricate web of alliances that define modern geopolitics. Such an event is not merely a regional incident, but a catalyst that ripples across borders, influencing the actions of major powers, the strategies of neighboring nations, and the overall balance of power in the international arena. To fully grasp the magnitude of these implications, it is essential to examine how this conflict intersects with the interests and concerns of the global community. At the heart of the global impact is the potential for escalation. The Middle East is already a region of profound instability, with overlapping conflicts, fragile states, and deeply entrenched rivalries. An attack by Israel on Iran risks igniting a broader confrontation involving multiple actors, each with its own agenda and interests. Iran's allies, such as Hezbollah in Lebanon, Shia militias in Iraq, and the Assad regime in Syria, could retaliate against Israel, drawing the region into a spiral of violence. Such a scenario would not only exacerbate existing tensions, but also create new fault lines, destabilizing an already volatile region. The involvement of major powers further amplifies the stakes. The United States, as a key ally of Israel, is likely to be drawn into any significant escalation, whether through direct military involvement, increased support for Israel, or diplomatic efforts to manage the fallout. Conversely, nations like Russia and China, which maintain strong ties with Iran, could use the situation to challenge U.S. influence in the Middle East. This dynamic transforms the conflict from a regional dispute into a theater of great power competition, with global consequences. One of the most immediate global concerns is the potential disruption to energy markets. Iran's strategic location and its control over the Strait of Hormuz, a vital choke point through which a significant portion of the world's oil supply flows, make it a critical player in global energy stability. Any military action that threatens this passage could lead to significant disruptions, driving up oil prices and creating economic shockwaves that would be felt worldwide. The uncertainty surrounding such a scenario adds to market volatility, affecting everything from fuel prices to international trade. The attack also poses significant challenges to international diplomacy. The Iran nuclear deal, formerly known as the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action (JCPOA), has been a cornerstone of global efforts to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons. An attack on Iran could undermine these efforts, hardening Tehran's stance and reducing the likelihood of constructive negotiations. This would complicate the task of addressing not only Iran's nuclear program, but also broader issues such as regional security and arms proliferation. From a humanitarian perspective, the broader implications of such an attack are equally concerning. Military actions often lead to civilian casualties, displacement, and humanitarian crises, further straining the resources of already fragile states and international aid organizations. The spillover effects of a prolonged conflict could exacerbate existing refugee flows, increase poverty, and deepen social and economic inequalities in the region. These outcomes would have far-reaching consequences, impacting not only the Middle East but also neighboring regions and beyond. The attack also has significant implications for international norms and the rule of law. Actions perceived as unilateral or preemptive often provoke debates about sovereignty, the legality of military interventions, and the role of international institutions in resolving conflicts. A lack of consensus on these issues undermines the credibility of organizations like the United Nations, weakening their ability to mediate disputes and maintain global order. This erosion of trust in international mechanisms can embolden other nations to act unilaterally, increasing the likelihood of conflicts in other parts of the world. Public perception and media narratives also play a crucial role in shaping the global response. How the attack is framed, whether as a legitimate act of self-defense or an unwarranted act of aggression, will influence public opinion, diplomatic relations, and the actions of both state and non-state actors. The narratives constructed around such events often become part of the broader discourse on international security, shaping how future conflicts are understood and addressed. Furthermore, the attack has profound implications for alliances and partnerships. Nations in the Middle East, such as Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates, which share concerns about Iran's regional ambitions, may find themselves aligning more closely with Israel, further shifting the regional balance of power. Conversely, nations sympathetic to Iran, such as Iraq or Syria, may deepen their ties with Tehran, exacerbating existing divisions. These shifts have the potential to redefine regional dynamics, influencing everything from trade agreements to military strategies. The broader implications also extend to global governance and the pursuit of peace. The international community faces the challenge of addressing not only the immediate conflict, but also the underlying issues that drive such tensions. These include ideological divides, economic disparities, and the proliferation of arms and technology. A failure to address these root causes risks perpetuating a cycle of conflict that undermines efforts to create a stable and peaceful world. In sum, the broader implications of Israel's attack on Iran highlight the interconnectedness of modern conflicts and the complex interplay of regional and global dynamics. The event serves as a stark reminder that actions taken in one part of the world can have far-reaching consequences, influencing global stability, economic security, and the principles that underpin international relations. Understanding these implications is essential for navigating the challenges of a rapidly changing and increasingly interconnected world.